Hi, listeners. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Season 3 has gone so well so far. The Vic Armstrong episode is our most viewed and listened to episode that we've ever made, and we're very excited. If you've been listening, you know that we've been teasing an exciting new project and that there will be a Kickstarter for this project, and we wanted to let you know we're still working on that, and it's going to be launching very, very soon. But since you've been patient, we wanted to give you a little tease, a little morsel. And I'm going to ask Peter to reveal the title of this new project.
Thanks, Daniel. This project's going to be called George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age.
We're going to leave you with that. We're going to tease you. You can let your imagination think about what this project might be. You will know all when the Kickstarter launches. Please keep checking the Instagram, the YouTube page, all of our channels to be the first to know when George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age, is about to set sail.
Indiana, we are simply passing through history. This is history.
Welcome to the Young Indy Chroniclers, a podcast about the making of the show, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which first aired on ABC in 1992.
Kept thinking about what was Indiana Jones like as a young man. I came up with this idea of him seeing the world through the eyes of a soldier and a secret agent.
Over the course of our podcast, we're going to talk to a whole host of very talented people who either worked on this show or were there from the beginning.
We were able to shoot it on location in the real places where these events took place.
Oh, make it up as you go. Oh boy, that's great advice.
We hired some of the best European directors, a whole host of very, very talented people.
I'm your host, Peter Holmstrom.
And I'm Daniel Noah, and this is the Young Indy Chroniclers.
There's only one rule, Indiana. Stay alive.
Welcome back to the Young Indy Chroniclers, the one and only podcast devoted specifically to the Young Indiana Jones television series and franchise. I'm your host, Peter Holmstrom, and joining me on this adventure of a lifetime is Mr. Daniel Noah.
Is an adventure down the road, Peter.
For the majority of people in the world, TV is taken for granted. The content is presented and little thought is given to the huge effort it takes to get it made. In reality, the production of a single episode of television is much like the forming of a multi-million-dollar company in the space of just a couple of weeks. On today's show, we're thrilled to have with us someone who helped coordinate the efforts for many episodes of Young Indiana Jones, Chris Bromley, credited as the second unit manager for many episodes. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, pleasure, sir.
You know, I'd love to start out with the begin at the beginning kind of thing. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in the film business?
I was out of school and was looking for something to do, and I decided I was going to go to law school, and I didn't care for that, and was really very unhappy. And a friend of mine said, look, there's this company down here, and they're making a movie, and I loved photography, and photography has always and still is a passion. But I said, "Oh, really? What's up?" And they said, "Wow, it's really cool. They give you $400 a week, and you get a roll of quarters and a pager, and you ride around in the rental car they give you and take pictures of places." I said, "That's it?" And they were like, yeah, that's it. Want you? And I said, "Yeah, I'll be down tomorrow night." And so I went down there, and that was me getting into the film business on Mississippi Burning.
Wow.
I am sick and tired of going to the funerals of black men who have been murdered by white men.
They are powerless against us if every single Anglo-Saxon Christian one of us stands together.
We do not accept Jews because they reject Christ. We do not accept Papists because they bow to a Roman dictator. We do not accept Turks, Orientals, nor Negroes.
We're not killers. That's the difference between them and us. That's the difference between them and you.
Yes, I was the guy that would go out in the locations department, and there were two scouts, and then an assistant manager and a manager, and so you go out and you look at, oh well, we need a pig farm, okay, well let's go scout pig farms. Well, anyway, I found one.
You'd kill Frank? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't give it no more thought than wringing a cat's neck.
So that's kind of how I got into it, and I loved the visual images, and I loved seeing how the director, Alan Parker, and his crew, 90% all from the UK, living in Jackson, Mississippi, in the Holiday Inn downtown, how that worked and how that came together, and it's very inspirational. And, making big bucks, 400 a week, had my own rental car. I was on cloud nine. And, working 6 days a week, like, 23 hours a day or something. But I got into that, and then I location managed a couple more films. Excuse me. I was the assistant location manager on 2 films after that. And then I went to work for Foundation for Public Broadcasting and did a couple documentaries. And then I applied for a job in Wilmington and North Carolina. So, and it was for the Young Indy things. And I had a phone interview, and I sent my resume in, and the AD called me and said, "Hey, you want the job? You got it. Just be up here in tomorrow." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm in Louisiana right now at my old college roommate's place." And he said, "Well, that's fine. Just, as long as you're in by 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, that's fine." I said, "Well, that's going to be all right." And anyway, so about 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm driving just as fast as I can drive to get there. The phone rings, and the guy says, "Hey, are you running late? Are you close by?" And I said, "Well, I'm in on I-95, and I'm getting close." And he said, "Well, I-95 doesn't run to Wilmington, North Carolina." And I said, "North Carolina? Oh, I thought you meant Delaware." Turn around, come back down again.
Oh, no.
So anyway, and that's when I met Mr. Rick McCallum and, his people, and just started in on having, just a really, 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 this was like grad school in filmmaking, working for Rick and Lucasfilm and those people. I mean, they were outstanding individuals and very, very adept at their craft.
George is actually a very small filmmaker. This accident of Star Wars created this other world for him. But, THX, American Graffiti, they were all shot in 20, 25 days for very, very little money. I think American Graffiti was like $750,000. So, you could tell that's where he wanted to be in a way.
Were you at the beginning of the show? Like, about what year did you come on? At the very beginning, or were you?
Yeah, yes, it was.
So was that 91?
Yes. That's correct. And so I was living in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. I found this great little place and moved in there. And of course, everybody wanted to be at the beach. That was from out of town. And it is a gorgeous place. I mean, you can't imagine. Of course, and it's a straight line and one left turn to the studio across from the airport. It's interesting to build a studio across from an airport. And it was just great. You could go swimming in the morning, take a shower, get in the car, and be at work in 15 minutes. And so, I was living there, and one day Rick said, "Hey, how do you feel about moving over to London for a while?" And I said, "Absolutely." I wasn't married at the time or anything. So, all right, we'll go. And I did. And 2 other people, Portia Thomas and Stephen Thompson, who's a gaffer, and Portia's a camera operator now. No, not Portia, Page. Sorry, the sister. Portia's the sister, Page is the owner. So did that. And so we traveled out of London to many, many, many countries, as I know, Rick told you about. And I learned about organization from Rick. I learned about communication. I learned urgency. I learned respect. And I learned when to take a chance and when not to take a chance. Of course, safety was the biggest issue, but, other things like borrowing a lens from the camera crew, you got to be careful when you do that, So Ben Burtt was the director, and I was his, unit manager and AD and sometimes boom operator. But one of the things, we transportation coordinator. One of the things we learned to do was to make do with nothing, and I think Rick actually he wanted to see you because he and I felt the same way. I had a hard time with some of the LA crews and crew members, and it was just that they wanted everything handed to them. Rick taught us how to make something out of nothing.
Rick McCallum's a good pirate captain, I think.
Seems like he'd have a good pirate laugh.
Yes, and it's something that like it's hard to explain to sort of other people.
And you had to think every second of every day to make sure you accomplished the goals. And it was interesting because the first on the main unit, Callum McDougall at the time, and the production manager, and then Terry Bamber, were all incredibly instrumental in organization. And we all really bit into that and got to where it was Crispin Reese, Ben, Terry Bamber, Callum McDougall, Nick Law, and Gareth Tandy. And, we would sit and talk about, okay, if you're going to do this here, and we can do this here, then we can bring you back that camera and swap it out for this one. And then George would show up. You guys got an extra camera? We did. Yes, we do. And we would tell Rick, and he would just go like, not my problem, make it work. Just make sure it happens. And so now we're all hovering around a camera truck trying to sneak on and steal a body and a lens and a tripod, forget the film, whatever. And, it was just one of those things. And Rick had just an amazing sense of humor about it. He was just like, honey, I don't know what to tell you, but you just got to make it happen. Talk to you later. Bye. And, but, when you were challenged with something like that, it motivated you to do better. Did we make mistakes? Absolutely. And I still make mistakes. But, I got to, we were there. And then, of course, we came back to Wilmington to shoot some. And then we stayed on for a bit and did Radio Land Murders, but, not part of Young Indy. But, I thoroughly enjoyed working with that group out of the UK. I mean, I people practiced and learned their craft. There were no self-appointed visionaries. People practiced and learned. Like in, here in Atlanta, if you interview, and I've done 4 or 5 shows here, but you interview for people for jobs, they say, yeah, I'm interviewing for Key Grip. And so, okay, let me see your resume. And it has 7 or 8 key grip positions on it. And then you do a little research and you find out, well, he day played as a key grip for 4 of those. And he's only had actually 3 key grip jobs. But everybody here elevates themselves beyond their capability. And it's just disgusting.
I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur.
Do you think that's an American thing? I feel like
it totally is. Absolutely. And, as an American, I take offense to it. It's like, you've been granted the ability to express yourself creatively and be involved in the super. Why would you misrepresent yourself? Because you're just going into that whole overpromise and underdeliver. And, Rick and those guys taught us, be accountable. Most importantly, be accountable to yourself and your craft. Take it seriously. And when we have our one day off a week, then we'll laugh and cut up and stuff. Now, that's not to say we didn't laugh daily on Young Indy, because there were always some things that, quote unquote, you just can't make it up. You just had to see it. And we would look at each other and go, oh my God, how did that, what? Like the time that Ben and Peter MacDonald was directing an episode.
You're given this bloody great train to shoot on, which trains at the best of times are not easy. Your big action sequences, the star of the film, who wanted all his own stuff. So he's running over the top of the carriages of the train, and I think, fuck, if he just slips once, I got to phone him up and say, oh, by the way, do you have anyone else in mind?
And of course, Ben and I, we mopped everything up. We did all this action sequences and stuff. You know, that's what second units do. Over there, they're called action units, whatever. But we borrowed the train. We had the gun train, the death train in Africa, you know. And that was built. That was just like flat bottom carts, and Ricky Ayers, the art director, and Gavin Bouquet, the production designer, they built this train, and it's the engine is in the engine of it with the cow catcher and all that. It's a steam engine or coal, I don't know, but it's in like 100 films. It's the only train over there in that area. So they built it. You know, they had to cut the iron by hand, and et cetera, and paint and lacquer and everything like that. Lacquer being the key word, because it shined and looked like metal. And unfortunately, one day, we were filming the train, and after you tell, you know, we had smoke gags. The effects guys had smoke gags all hidden, so the train looked like it was, you know, smoking and this and that. Well, one of the extras did exactly what he was told 35 times not to do, and that's touch anything. Well, he kicks over one of the smoke things, and so we ended up catching Peter's train on fire. And
oh no!
Needless to say, we couldn't shoot anymore, and the train had to go back to be repaired through the main unit set with Peter standing there watching his train smoke as it came by. And boy, I'm going to tell you what, we heard a little bit of that. And we were like, whoops, you know. Oh, sorry, sir. Peter just had this.
So the train is on fire and it's going down the track.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and we put it off. We put it out so it was smoking profusely, you know, because a 4-year-old could look at it and said, I think that thing's either on fire or maybe just stopped burning, you know. And so, you know, Peter never really said anything until it was time. But before that, Peter would look at you like, I'm going to kill you, you know.
Unfortunately, I didn't have my normal crew. You know, I had the same crew for 15, 20 years in England, but I inherited the crew that had been on in the previous episodes. I must say they were all okay, but they always, if we have a meeting and I'm the director, I'm going to do the shooting, their eye line would always be to Rick, not to me. And I realised then that, you know, who behind the scenes, who was the boss.
But he would, I mean, Jesus Christ, working with Peter MacDonald, that was an amazing experience for me. We were in Africa, and, you know, we had this Czech focus puller, Jan, and he was pretty amazing. One of the times we were out there with Peter on the tracks, because we couldn't get away from the tracks for some appearance, I don't know. Because it was the death train from hell thing, you know, so the trains and everything and the tracks, and we were pumping these hand carts to get around. I've got some amazing pictures of David Beavis, myself, Ben Burtt, and David Tattersall, the DP, on this thing, and we're all in like short shorts, you know, and every time that picture's seen, you're going, who wears short shorts? Well, obviously Ben, Chris, and David Tattersall do, and, you know, we're like... So anyway, the focus, Peter said, I want the camera right here. I want it looking down. I want you to put it on a 300, and I want you to shoot that until you can't shoot it anymore. Either the train runs over you or it just gets so out of, because it's a fixed focal length thing, you know. So Jan he always got everything done, but Jan never hurried. Okay, so he stands there. And his whole thing was he's standing there, he's getting ready to, you know, operate the camera. He's got his focus puller there. Something happened to the focus puller. I don't know, like 20 minutes before we were going to shoot. So Jan has to focus and operate the camera. He's standing there, and Peter's just hovering around. You can tell Peter's really upset, worried he's not going to get the shot, you know, perfect sun and all this stuff. Here comes the train. Jan pulls out his pouch of tobacco and rolling papers, and the train's coming. You know, I mean, you can see it about a mile away coming right at us, and we're just going, oh, this is not going to be good. And then he he rolls a cigarette, pulls out a magnifying glass, aims it, lights the cigarette with the magnifying glass, and starts to look through the eyepiece.
Birdie, cover your ears.
Peter was just and we were, oh, damn, I don't know. So about 3 days later, we got to see the rushes, and Peter came up and he was very complimentary about the whole unit, but I know it scared the living daylights out of him. Who are these Americans over here trying to tell me what to do? But he's a very gracious man. He's a very kind man, but astronomically talented and totally gets making films.
Whatever you needed, there was no skimping. If you needed a helicopter or a big crane, it was there. As long as you properly used it and needed it, you were never stopped having what you want, which is very unusual, because most times you have to fight for, or very often you have to fight for almost everything you need and prove you need it. Whereas we were trusted and got what we needed without that fight, which is so much better, because it's better to use the energy for shooting rather than bloody arguing, so... And that's my theory.
Good theory.
And I retired.
An amazing story. I wonder, you mentioned George borrowing a camera. Do you have any?
He'd show up out of nowhere. You'd be walking down, the road to the camera truck, and George is standing. We're like, oh, hey, now how you doing? It was just, but he was always very gracious. Blue jeans, white T-shirt, and hat, and he'd get it right on it. He was very adept at operating the camera.
George was the kind of maverick from Northern California, an independent filmmaker who was always extremely proud that he had very few attachments to Hollywood.
Something about your young assistant, George Lucas.
Oh, he's not my assistant. George won an award to come to Warner Brothers and observe a film being made there, and he came when we were making Finian's Rainbow, and I said, who's that? And he said, well, he's observing you.
I think the student films are the only real hope. I think they're slowly beginning to realize that students know what they're doing.
Do you remember any specific scenes or things he might have shot?
Oh, no, I don't know. I don't.
It's okay. I know. It sounds like he was doing it a lot.
Yeah, he would come to different countries all the time, And look, I will tell you what, when that happens, you can only imagine the level of respect and motivation that did to the crew. He didn't have to do that, but he did it because he was overlooking his baby, because it's between him and Steven Spielberg. That was their thing, man. They did that together. And Rick drove the bus. He made it and pulled it all together. To work in an environment like that overseas, we're in Savo, Africa, watch the movie The Ghost in the Darkness. Well, that's where we were shooting, is on the bridge right there in Savo. And there's no phone service. We were doing things like signaling action with flags.
Wow.
Now, if you had handed, 15 flags to an American crew, they would have just melted down. But we had some amazing stuff. Thailand was very cool. We really enjoyed it. We actually stayed at the Cape Panama Hotel, which was the hotel that's featured in the movie about the tsunami that comes in. And they completely, about a year and a half later, rebuilt that whole place.
That's fancy.
We will need to change our clothes.
Yeah, one day, Crispin Reese, and he was starting to direct some second unit also. And Christopher and I decided we're going to get on them. We're going to rent some motorcycles and ride over the mountain to Patong Beach. And that's where we thought we were cool, because that's where the GIs went on leave. And so they came in obviously from another direction. But so we get on the motorcycles, we ride over the mountain, almost get run over by several, what we call matatas, vans that are falling apart with people hanging all over them. And we go down to Patong Beach, and we're like, wow, this is cool. Look, there's people riding jet skis and swimming and all this. And okay, and so here comes the guy walking down the road, the beach, and he's selling pizza. And we're like, whoa, okay, that's us, you know. Couple of beers and a pizza. About 45 minutes later, we both started throwing up.
No.
And I don't know what was on the pizza. Probably cat, maybe, you know, a little dog, you know, whatever. And we could ride about a mile and a half before pulling over and had to throw up again. And a mile and a half to throw up again. We got back, we both ended up getting bad food poisoning. And I woke up and there was a doctor looking over me. And I was like, oh, great, a witch doctor in Thailand. This is going to be awesome. And this it spoke perfect English, was Harvard educated, and said, here, have a Sprite here. And I said, a Sprite. And he was like, yeah, have a Sprite. But I'm going to put some of this in there, a little bit of that in there, a little bit of juju here, and a little bit of, you know, matata there, and shake it all up. You're going to drink like 4 of these a day. And I'm going to die. I'm going to die any moment. And yeah, okay, whatever. I'll go out, you know, on, you know, all these, you know, bat wings and chicken leg scratchings, and they put in there. And anyway, it got better, you know. It got better about 3 days later.
You're looking better. He says you'll be up and around in no time.
Just don't ask me to dance.
You know, I got to tell you, though, all of it all together, one of the things I was most blessed with being able to do, there were 2 things. The second one was working in and around Prague 1, and out in the countryside, because we were at Barrandov Studios, you know, and boy, I could tell some stories about that place. But anyway, the beauty of that city alone, I mean, you were just stunned to go to work every morning, like what you saw. And it was before, you know, it became Americanized. You know, you could walk over the Charles Bridge, and there was the occasional daddy's boy there playing bad Bob Dylan and smoking weed and begging for money, you know, because he ran up his dad's visa too far. But but there were some outstanding places to eat and so forth and so on. And collectively as a unit, I think we got real close in Prague. We got real close in Turkey, but the most amazing thing of it all was Africa.
Whoa, Africa! I've always wanted to come here.
That was just, and we went up, it was so cool. We went up in a hot air balloon. It was myself and I think David Tattersall, and I can't remember who else went. And we sailed over the tops of giraffes and elephants and things like that. And they had a list of stuff that Rick wanted to accomplish. And we did it.
How do we make this thing go down? A road! Ruin the road! Well,
And that was in the Masai Mara. And we were floating over, and we decided, whoever decided, this is where we're going to land and get out. Because at about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, the winds start to blow. You don't want to be up in the hot air balloon when the winds blow. And they land, and right, like, off to our left was a table with a white tablecloth on it, glassware, plates, and that was breakfast.
Wow.
And it was very, very cool. But just the beauty of that place. I mean, we were up in the Ngong Hills, you know, Karen, just for kicks and food, because there's a great restaurant in Karen called the Carnivore, and it's brilliant. Nairobi was cool. We only stayed in the Norfolk Hotel for, I think, a week or 2, and then we were under canvas the whole time after that. And Rick picked a safari company that was just outstanding, you know. So, yeah, I think Africa was amazing because that's when you really got tested. There was nothing. There was no radio. We have to bring your own water in. You know, we had horses with us, so we had to deal with that. And you know, it was just a place where you kind of got in touch with yourself and knew that there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You had to take care of yourself and make sure that you were close to your people that were with you, and you respected them, and you helped them if they needed help, or you gave them accolades when they did something great. But that was one of the things that happened on that series that I think that, Rick instilled in us, was that, you have each other and you have yourself. Come together as a unit and do good work. It was that simple, but it was hard. It was really hard.
Your government has decided those guns are more urgently needed in France. You and your lieutenant are to escort them back to Europe by first available steamer.
The expedition. All those lives for nothing.
That's not for me or you to say, Captain. Orders are orders.
Now, how long were you on the show? Did you stay on it all the way through 96? Did you leave at some point?
I left in... Yeah, I finished. Yeah, we finished it up.
Were you in Morocco with them when they did the 2 Morocco episodes?
That was before 90, wasn't it?
Well, they did... I don't know how to identify them, but they were the last one shot. So it was, I don't know if they were shot. I think they were shot in 96. One with Flannery, one with Corey Carrier in Ouazzazate.
They are not worthy of so noble a death. Take them out and shoot them.
That's a wonderful disguise. Look at you. You know, you really have quite a flair for this.
How do you know where to find me?
This is the only place left in the country where slaves can still be sold.
I'm fortunate because I did a film called Hidalgo, and so we were over there. It's a great place to work. Lovely.
Hopkins and Hidalgo are legends. They've never lost a long-distance race.
Perhaps you have never heard of the great ocean of fire. A 3,000-mile race across the Arabian desert.
Well, I was curious because there was a whole period where they were, shooting new footage to add to pre-existing episodes.
We did that all the time.
You did that all the time.
We'd go out in the countryside of whatever country we were in, dig a trench and do World War I.
I can't believe you actually did that.
Corporal Mahendra Singh, where can I find him? He's in the 23rd. We gotta find the CO.
And with smoke and, atmosphere, make it rain, whatever, you would never know that you're, in the backyard of somebody's house per se. It was done quite well.
Do you recall specifically, there's an episode that I think you guys shot in Turkey, Beersheba.
Oh, boy.
And it was Simon Windsor, and then they added like an hour to it. And I was curious if you were involved in the expansion of that episode.
I don't know. I remember doing that episode because a lot of it a lot of the interiors we shot in Prague.
The British are here in force.
Impossible.
Connect me with Gaza as soon as possible. General von Kressenstein's headquarters.
It is merely a diversion to make us think they are here in force.
You will cancel that call.
Captain Schiller.
Cancel the call!
It was like Attack of the Horsemen, I think was the name of it, or something like that. Yeah, we did some pretty good. I mean, Jordi Casares was our head horse guy, and he did some pretty amazing stuff. But it mirrors the last quote cavalry charge in history when the Australians went into Beersheba.
Brigadier Grant's suggestion is absurd. His men are mounted infantry. If we charge, I insist it be my cavalry.
The charge is exactly what the Turks would expect from the British cavalry. And the last thing they'd expect from my men.
That's kind of what we did too. Because we had guys doing just amazing horse stunts and, coming off the back of horses and falling off the sides. And, I remember we shot the saddle. We didn't physically shoot it. We rigged it with a, thing. And Jordy did the stunt and is riding, and all of a sudden the saddle comes off, but then, they're kind of like focusing on a guy who shoots it, and then the saddle comes off, and so does Jordy.
We lost Dex coming in. His horse made it first to the trenches. He would have liked that.
There was 2 episodes shot in Turkey. Like, what's your recollections of shooting there? 'Cause it was kind of a fresh thing for American shows to shoot over there.
Yes, because this was right after the journalist was assassinated. And so we shot in Shezme, Izmir, Istanbul, and I can't remember if there was any other cities.
I was thinking of writing an article for Stockholm about Turkish nationalism. I was wondering if you could arrange a meeting for me with General Mustafa Kemal.
I'll have nothing to do with the political moves against the government at this time of crisis.
But I would need to interview Mustafa Kemal to get the views of the people who really disagree with the government.
You know that he spends most of his time with his troops at the front. But I'll see what I can do.
I know one story is we had our little village out in the desert. And for the first time this was kind of like our luck. We had to always alter our course and change things to make it better. But we're shooting in the desert, and unfortunately, they had like weeks and weeks of rain. So in the desert, precisely at the location that we're going to be in the desert, so everything looks like desert, grass is growing. And we're just, how the hell? What? So, God, that coffee looks good. Anyway,
sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. But grass in the desert. And we're just like, how the hell? So we were like, well, maybe we shoot this way for day, and we can shoot this way for day. Well, that was all good and well. We figured that one out. But the wind was just horrific. So, when you were outside, the sand was blowing like 4 feet, 5 feet off the ground, and it was tough. So the office is back in Istanbul. When we had an office, we had like a room with 6 desks in it. That was our production office, and anybody could come in and plug up, We didn't have this glorified production office with craft service, tea service and plenty of sandwiches and all that. No, if you wanted a sandwich, you wouldn't go get one. Pick it up yourself. There's no like $200,000 expenditure on the budget for snacks. Which is the American way. Mm-hmm. What we did was we were out in the location. They had a break. It was for 15 minutes, and they came out with tea service and some biscuits, and it was quite nice. But then you went back to work. Well, guess what? When you look at that on a weekly basis, it means you're not working very long, and in Europe, Africa was different, but in the European destinations. These directors, they didn't want to work much past 8 hours. Now, it only took us like 8 hours to get there, but but anyway.
Any word on the red document? It will be here by Tuesday. That's not much time. Tell them I'll be ready. Good luck.
The problem was that we had guys out there working, and they had sand in their eyes the whole time, and they couldn't. So we bought goggles. We had 50 people out there working, so we bought 100 pairs of goggles, so everybody would have 2. Well, 2 days later, we get a call, hey, what's going on with those goggles? We haven't got them yet, And, they were like, some of these guys out here that live in this little village close by, they're farmers and such, they have got these yellow goggles, yellow rims and clear in the front, and we can ask them where they got them or something like that. And they were like, no, we'll just send some more. I think the goggles are 85 cents a piece or something. But so we sent another 100. And the art director calls back and says, well, when are you guys going to send us the damn goggles? Is this a budget issue? Because I can find the money for, $20 worth of goggles. I can do that. And they said, no. I wonder what's getting messed up. And the art director said, I don't know what's getting messed up, but there's a lot of guys in the village walking around with yellow goggles on there. And they were just, taking a little off the top, if you will. But, that was interesting, especially when we finished shooting and we blew up the village. On the other side of the sand dune were about 50 farmers with wagons and horse-drawn carriages and tractors. They knew we were going to blow the village up. They were wanting the wood.
6 out of 7 isn't bad.
Because the same thing, they come out and they look at the set builds, right? And they'd say, you guys aren't, why isn't this done yet? Or why isn't this done yet? And the same art director would say, I don't know, but I can tell you this, there's a lot of brand new chicken coops in the village. So, I don't know. It was, Turkey was interesting. I mean, we ran into some issues that, we had a guy that you go to these countries, you have to have a co-production company, right? So we had this guy in Turkey, and of course, towards the end of the show, Rick didn't feel good about him, and so Rick watched him like a hawk. And sure enough, finding out that the guy owned partial interest in the hotel we were staying at, the rental car company, and blah, blah, blah. And we were only going to be there for like another week, so Rick just just said bye-bye. And the guy tries to get retribution first time by trying to impound our camera truck. So we got, and this is McCallum's idea. Rick McCallum's idea. He got the idea of bringing a duplicate truck out and just literally writing on the side, camera truck, and in the back of the camera truck were cardboard boxes with words on them literally looked like somebody took a magic marker and wrote film, lens, whatever they wanted to write on there. And so they came to set, and we're here to impound your camera truck. And they handed them the keys to that camera truck for sure. Camera truck drove off. Well, they drove off with a whole bunch of cardboard boxes, So that didn't happen. So then when we were going to fly back, the same guy calls whoever, the Ministry of Travel or something like that. We flew on BA all the time, and makes the claim that we have stolen artifacts. Because if you find a coin in Turkey and you try to take it, it's not a good thing. You ever watch Midnight Express?
Based on the true story of Billy Hayes. Caught, convicted, and confined in a land and a system he didn't understand. No one could help him.
Billy, what have they done to you?
Midnight Express.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, rough.
Yeah, man. You felt like that the whole time, And I don't have any. No, I don't know. I'm just here making a film. You make a film about Midnight Express, we kill you. But anyway, he claimed that we had artifacts. So they literally, in 20-degree weather, stopped the jet on the tarmac, bring out these rolling ladders. Now, we're about 70 people, but the other 200 people on the plane didn't have anything to do with us, but they all had to deplane, and those guys just took all the luggage and tossed it on the runway and then drove away.
Wow.
And it was pretty wild, but I know that there was some follow-up to it, and Rick prevailed.
And when I got to them, we went into aggressive negotiations. Thank you.
Aggressive negotiations, what's that?
Negotiations with a lightsaber.
So Turkey was interesting. It's beautiful. Istanbul's gorgeous, People were quite nice. And at that time, everything was coal. So your clothes, your bed sheet, everything. We were in a very nice hotel. That's one thing about it. You didn't make piles and piles of money. Like if you were doing that same thing in America, you stay in a shitty hotel, but you're a union guy and you're making piles of money. You know what I mean? Wherever we went, wherever we stayed, wherever we flew, Lucasfilm took amazing care of us. I mean, they really, really did a first-class job. And, it was just a good thing. All the countries we went to. It was for us, for like Steve and myself, Paige, And it was like, getting your doctorate in film. You learned so much. You assumed nothing. And that's the way I was trained. It was that way. And of course, I became incredibly familiar with gear, the camera department, grip electric. So as I got on up in my career later on, when these, gaffers or key grips and their best boys would show up, say, yeah, we need a couple of those XT2112s and blah, blah, blah. And say, really? Well, there's 3 on the truck already. Is there a problem? Are they broken? And they would look at me like, oh shit, he knows what that is. Because everybody wants to get their gear on. First, every time when you interview somebody for a job in Atlanta, the first words out of their mouth aren't, hey, how you doing? They're like, look, I've got a lot of gear I'd like to rent you too. And I just look at them and go, I'm really not interested in that. And if that's you, then I think, we need to move on, not waste your time. Because I don't want to hear about your rental package. In fact, I don't want to be rude.
Ben told us a story about a scene in Attack of the Hawkmen where he says you and he dressed up as German soldiers and
ran
were
to
blown.
the field.
Yeah, like do you recall that? And how did you experience that?
I was sore the next day. Because then Ben, oh my God, what a lovely man. And stopped the running and carrying the gun. And he says, Chris, go out there and run this way and get shot and fall down. When I yell, that's the bullet, So he puts me out there for like another half hour. And I'm running around, falling over and dropping the rifle. And I'm like, okay, let's do it again. And I'm like, hang on, Ben, I just knocked the wind out of myself. And I'd get up and I'd do it again. Now fall over backwards. And, now fall to the left, fall to the right, fall on your face. Can you kind of do like up in the air thing, like maybe a jump, and then he got back out there and did some more too, but it was quite funny. Ben Burtt, what an amazing fellow.
It's great to join you. I've never talked about Young Indiana Jones before in any interview. So you're going to get something, I don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be fresh. Memories dredged up from, 30 years ago? Something like that.
A first-class person. And his talent is just off the charts, as you well know. And he was a very, very respectful individual. And very logical about the way he thought. I don't know. He taught me how to, run a Nagra. He taught me how to, because we didn't have a full sound crew. Because if Ben had done sound, it was the deal that, okay, well, Ben will operate the Nagra and set the mix, and Bromley will operate the boom. And I'm going, the what? And they go, the thing with a microphone on the end of, the one that you have to have your hands above your head for 14 hours. They're like, yeah, that's it. And I'm, oh, great. At the same time, I'm supposed to do my other job or what? And then Ben got too busy directing to do it. So here I am with a Nagra around my neck and a boom in my hand. And then Ben was so good at, the sound effects and stuff. He would say, now these stunt guys are fighting and stuff like that. So I'm not going to film them. We've already got that. But I'm going to run them through their paces. And I want you to go out there and just record their feet sliding on the dirt. So I'm out there running around in circles. And I'd be like, what's next, Ben? I'm going to fall down again or what? No, just keep it going. It sounds great, man. Just get a little closer. That would happen frequently. But yeah, Hawkman was interesting because after we finished overseas, we went to, what's the name of the place in Oregon? I can't remember right now, but actually, we went to Alabama, where this guy who invented the green light on the the battery and made millions of dollars. And he was a aerial enthusiast, if you will. And he bought the entire collection from the Blue Max.
The time is 1916, when a new breed was born, a new kind of hero, the air ace. Here are the heroes, the cowards, the daredevils, blazing across the skies, striving for glory 4 miles up above the thunder of no man's land. The Blue Max, a film big enough to encompass a world war, yet intimate enough to share the dreams, emotions, and personal conflicts of men in battle.
I wonder if you're as good as you think you are. In or out of bed?
And refurbed them all. And so we were like, well, this is right down our alley. And so we went there and we shot. Then to do the action sequences, we went to this place in Oregon called Proctor Enterprises. And these guys were like interesting because they had this chalet type ground level, all glass exterior kind of stuff. And their lab was like an operating room, and they constructed us quarter scale models of all the hero airplanes, articulating pilots with little scarves that would fly. They could catch an engine on fire. We built 2 to crash, but they all had smoke gags and stuff like that. And we were doing things like building a rostrum, pointing the camera down, fan in front of, and set the airplane on a blue tarp, have you, okay? Put a wind machine in front of that and do a smoke gag, and looking down in the cuts in there, you would think that they're flying through the how the hell did they get up that high to look down over those planes? Easy, build a 9-foot roster and stand on it, you know? It was just things like that we were, and we're shooting in 16. You know, and it worked. But yeah, the guys at Proctor were like very, very meticulous on everything. You know, they did everything with tweezers and a tiny little paintbrush and a Q-tip. And they built those models, and we photographed them and sent them back in, and they all got approved. And then we went out to meet the pilots. And standing there, and the pilots walk up, and they reached out to shake our hands, and most of them had 2 and 3 fingers missing from starting the airplanes. Yeah. We're like, okay. This is interesting.
Well, you see, the longest any reconnaissance guy ever lasted with us is 8 days.
Why is that?
Well, you're flying low and slow, and you got a camera in your hand when what you need is a gun.
Hey, Doc Breath, give him a break.
Ben was like, we really need a good smoke machine. And Rick pops up and goes, and he's like a long distance somewhere in the world we're talking to. And he goes, no, you need a big old Ajiba, you know? And I'm like, well, I can't hear you. What? You know? And he's like, Ajiba. And so, honey, just go find the damn Ajiba. Just get it. Make it work. You know, okay, and then we found it, and these are old smoke machines. They're like giant weed blowers, and boy, they put out some smoke. So when you're working around these airplanes, the camera guys, myself, Ben, you wear catcher's equipment in case one runs into you, because they're radio controlled. But this place we're shooting is right in front of the mountain and Mount Hood, and then in between us and them was the freeway, and then the mountain. But the truckers with CB radios that had been like altered, they would go on the air and clip, and it would just send a plane just off in the other direction. So if you're doing a low pass right into the camera lens, you know, you just like, oh God, please don't let it cut me in half, you know, and. So that was interesting, but it worked out. That episode is pretty cool, you know, and I've watched some other things on TV about the Lafayette Escadrille and all of that. But Ricky Ayers put together these planes with the canvas and the dope. Of course, we towed them on the ground, you know, washing machine's engine, in them to make a propeller spin. But they were very authentic.
Reconnaissance, huh? Captain de France, Lafayette Escadrille. Lafayette Escadrille.
Yeah. I should have known you by your tactics. Under the sun,
Swift and sudden from behind.
And it was an interesting episode because then the guy's son went to the Mayo Clinic because he had some kind of issues with his thyroid. And then one day he got a call and said he was cured. And we were off the episode at the time, but we were called to told about this. So he got at his King Air and flew up to the Mayo Clinic with his wife. They picked up the son and flying back to Gunnersville, and he took off from the Mayo Clinic airstrip and augured right into the ground, killed the entire family intestate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think the state ended up getting the planes and blah, 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 and all that kind of fun stuff. But it was a sad ending to what was a really fun shoot, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, had a lot of laughs up there, you know, because you go to the lab and you start talking to guys. Of course, people like myself and Ben are always, like, overly curious and looking at things like that. And so we're like, what's this right here? Oh, don't touch that. You know, and it was, you know, don't touch that. Don't stand there. You know, don't breathe in that direction. You know. But,
Richtofen is going to be furious when he sees what the press make of this, eh?
I thought you got him.
No confirmation. We think he made it back. But it was a good fight, eh?
So Richtofen doesn't find out who took this picture.
Now, the episode, it cuts together so well, too. You wouldn't even think there was so many different stages of these planes.
oh, yeah. Real airplane, full-scale mock-ups, and then the models.
Yeah, it works really well. You know, I was curious, like, you mentioned how your first role on the series was in Wilmington. Like, what was kind of your job like when you first arrived to work on Young Indy?
I was working, basically, I was to do whatever was necessary to support the production. So call me a PA, call me a second lady, whatever. But, oh, yeah, I remember that was a big rub because I couldn't be a second because I wasn't in the director's guild. But anyway, whatever. And so I did whatever I was told to do, and I just worked my ass off.
Now, at that time in the series, was that primarily shooting some of the old Indiana Jones bookend stuff? I wonder if you could talk about that. We haven't
loads of bookends.
Get your arm out of that mailbox. I mean now. Tampering with the U.S. mail is a federal offense.
I dropped the wrong package in, that's all. This is what I intended to drop in the box.
Once you drop something in that box, it becomes the property of the U.S. government until delivery.
Oh, dear me. I haven't had so much trouble delivering a package since the incident in Vienna, back when I was a spy.
Spy? You mean like James Bond?
I mean a real spy in the war.
What war?
World War I.
Yeah, we haven't really been able to talk to many people who worked on those, so I'd love to hear some of that experience.
Well, you know, because it took place around Princeton, I believe, in the episode. So basically, we had American location managers there, but you know, and Vic Griffin was one, and Vic was able to find those scenarios in those houses. So we had the house where Young Indy lived, and you know, grandfather, you know, all that stuff like that.
I know this isn't your favorite subject. When the IRS starts making threats, you have to take them seriously. What they find hard to believe is that you can still manage at your age to clock up the same standard of expenses which they had trouble accepting when you were in your prime. It might help if you were to occasionally produce a receipt. You haven't listened to a word I've said.
Sorry, it's that voice.
Voice?
That voice reminds me of the time I was in London.
You know, downtown Wilmington has all these cobblestone streets right by the river, and it wasn't about the river. We stayed off the river visually, but there's the brick buildings, and you infest that with period extras and period Model Ts and things like that, and vintage cars, and you don't know where you are. If somebody told you, somebody in the episode is we're in Princeton, Chiron, Princeton. From then on, you just totally believed that you were right there. So yeah, and they were bits because they were hard to keep up with because it's a bit of this episode, a bit of this episode. The ending of this episode in the same day we're shooting the starting of another episode, and then later on that night we're going to shoot the ending of this one. And so it was just, the call sheets were unbelievable.
I'll come and visit you every week.
No, you won't. And you know that.
I'll write to you. I will. I'll write to you every day. You're right. I won't.
No, wait. Go, 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 go. Go, go. No, that's my paw!
I don't know how much of this little adventure we should be telling your mother about.
All right, Father.
Jolly good.
You know, and it was hot. Oh my God, Wilmington is, so the Atlantic Ocean is 8 miles away and Cape Fear River is right there. And so you're just in this sauna the whole time. I don't care how much air conditioning you pumped into a building. Even the stages stayed hot, you know. And they're not really sound stages. They're just giant warehouses. But yeah, they were at the time, yeah. You know, at the end of an airport runway, and action. Oh, cut that one. You know, as a jet flies over the top. Because they literally come over about 200 feet over the tops of the stages before they hit the runway. And, but it, you know, look, it worked out. They were very helpful to us. And I think that at the end of the day, it was great because he had saved basically 5 hours of air travel for everyone instead of prepping it at the ranch. And we did do some prepping at the ranch, but instead of doing everything at the ranch and then transporting people across the United States to look for quote unquote Princeton and then travel to London, you know, we saved an amazing amount of basing on the East Coast like that. Hop on a plane, hour to Atlanta, 40 minutes to Charlotte, and then direct flight overseas.
Call Donovan, Marcus. Tell him I'll take that ticket to Venice now.
I'll tell him we'll take 2.
It was good. I mean, the bookends really kind of opened your eyes to the whole vibe of the show and the period nature of it.
Listen, Bonzo Brain, you don't know what tough is. When I was your age, I was fighting in the Great War, in the most horrendous hell pit ever devised by man or the devil. It happened by a little river called the Somme. I was in the Belgian army, but my regiment was attached to the French.
And either you got that or you just wanted to go do cops and robbers somewhere, you know, like, you know.
If you want, I can make something up prettier than that, James. But that's the way it is. Okay. Night.
Those standard issue television shows. But people that really like their craft really hovered into the whole Young Indy thing.
Charles, this is war. We've got to be Watton. We can't beat the Germans by behaving like English gentlemen.
Oh, if only we could.
It was very funny. On our way back from Africa, we stopped in New York. So we've been in Africa forever. And we get up on the plane, Ben and I, and we start walking towards the door. We leave the airplane. We're walking down the air ramp into LaGuardia, and bam, hit you in the face. It's New York sirens, people cussing everybody out.
No! Come on!
What's the holdup?
Who knows? You want to walk? Move it back! Yours too, huh?
You don't like men?
Yeah, well, what's it to you?
Nothing, I just...
Men are scum.
All of them?
All of them.
Perhaps you're looking for perfection?
Perfection? Mister, I gave up on that a long time ago.
I know just what you mean.
You do?
Oh, sure. It was June 1920. I was leaving Chicago for a summer job in New York.
You know, running around, you know, fuck you, buddy, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it was just culture overload or lack of, whatever. And we went down there and Times Square, and we wanted to get a shot of old Indy getting out of a cab going into the George Rogers Theater, I think it's the name. And we hadn't even been to a hotel yet. And one of the guys drove up from Wilmington with the camera package in the back of his pickup truck with a cover on it. And he's just sitting on the side of like 57th and Broadway or something, waiting for us to arrive. We come up and get out in the cab, and we immediately start scouting hotels close to the theater with a high up access down in there. And they sent up in the back of the truck the costume for Jordan. Oh, I can't remember his name. What was his name? I can't remember.
George Hall.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was right.
Ah, the theater. Thank goodness I'm not late, eh?
Mister, come on, please. Don't give me a hard time. Just tell me what happened.
How much is on the meter?
$37.
I can't afford to tell you.
Man, you're all the same!
The costume for George Hall, and one girl drove up from Wilmington to dress him, and we said, well, who's going to do makeup? And we were like, no, we could put the clothes on a monkey, and you'd never know. You know, we're like on the 20th floor, and we finally figured out. So what was funny was Ben and I go into the hotels, each hotel, and we walk up to the front desk, and can we speak to the manager, please? And acting like we knew what was going on, and he'd come in, yes, sir, can I help you? Yes, we'd like to stay here. This is my director, John Smith, and hi, my name is Wilbur, and we're shooting some stuff. And before we lock into a hotel, we'd like to look at some rooms. We love looking down this street here because it's got all the theaters and things on it, and it looks great, all lit up. And so we went to like 4 hotels and played that game until we finally found a hotel room that had a window we could open and enough to get a camera out. And then we were like, yes, this is a wonderful room for Mr. Smith or whatever. He'll love this, And of course we're there and like still got dust on us from Africa, and boots, jeans, looking, we hadn't shaved in like a month, and just bleary eyed, the whole 9 yards. And we finally found it, and that night we got the taxi, put him in it, had him pull up in front of the theater, slowly open the door, get up, look at the sign, shut the door, and walk in, and boom, done.
That's incredible.
I see you're writing your review already,
Oh, you recognized me.
No, but I know a damn critic when I see one.
Hey.
Poor plot, indifferent staging, acting that would shame a high school play.
What are you doing?
If there's a way, be a worse show this season, but I've yet to enjoy it. How can you write stuff like that before you've even seen the show?
But it was funny, but Rick taught you how to do that stuff. Because if we'd walked, oh, hey, how you doing? We're from Lucasfilm, and we need a nice hotel room that overlooked blah, blah, blah. We'd ended up spending like $7, a minute. For every minute we were in the hotel room, and the room would have been like $1,000, and we'd had to file a $2,500 film permit. We were in and out of there like, nobody's business.
You were absolutely right.
What about?
About all the work it takes to put on a show. The laughter, the tears. You know something? I'm going to give this play a wonderful review.
A wonderful review? This cracker? What, are you insane?
But what about all the young people?
They should be ashamed of themselves. They should quit.
The funny thing was like, why? Is that your luggage? You need all that luggage for your stay here? And we were, oh, no, that's just his personal belongings in these cases because, he doesn't like to leave home without them. I made up something like that. He's continually working, and so this is like his work and his clothing and his files and all this. And he just can't be without them. Wow. Like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. And of course, it was the camera package. And then, of course, Ben, at the last minute, we've wrapped the images. Ben's go, okay, now we're going to take the Nogger and go down on the streets and just kind of walk around and just record ambient sound. And so we're packing up the Nogger to do. Then he goes, wait a minute, I got an idea. I said, you do? He said, yeah, we can. He looks at the camera guy and goes, hey, can you, are you handheld operator at all? And Chip's like, yeah. And he goes, well, I'm just thinking that we need, and this is total Ben Burtt, and this is how the Rick McCallum rubbed off on all of us, and so he's like, well, what we should do is just go down there with the camera on the sidewalk and get him emerging from the car over the hood of the taxi and walking around the back and walking into the theater and then swing around and follow him in and this and that and this shot and that shot. And so I go down there and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. Tonight in the news, 2 men arrested for shooting illegally. And, and we ended up following him and then on his face into the lobby of the theater and got away with it. I don't know what I said. I think I promised to buy popcorn for like all the kids in there or something. And I asked him how much that was going to be. And he said, probably $110.38. And I was like, here, have 120. And so we jumped in there and I was like, yeah, while we're here, why don't we get that, because I know Rick would like us to cover it as much as, cutting points. You had to get the cutting points, and sure enough, we did it and then packed our stuff and went back up, he flew to San Francisco and I flew to Wilmington.
Do you think we shall see each other again?
I don't know.
Wow.
But yeah, it was that, we did stuff like that. And I can remember a lot of it, but then tonight while I'm doing something, I'll go, oh, fuck, I should have told him about the, blah, 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 Oh, God, there were so many stories.
Did you say you were there when it was painted?
Yes, I was.
Oh, that's really neat.
See the date?
Yeah.
1908.
Hey, we had some people, breaking out. I broke an ankle. For the most part, we didn't have hardly any injuries. People got little bugs here and there. I do remember the first when we got to London, and they pick us up, and 2 things happened. So we got to take you to the VA clinic to get your jabs. And we're like, what? Excuse me? What do you mean jab? And he goes, well, we're going overseas and just, some of these places you got to get shots for that. Nobody told us about shots. What are you talking about? No, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. I pick up the phone. I'm calling Rick. He said, honey, it's not a problem. Don't just go in there and they'll do it and blah, blah, blah. So, because Ben was worried, and so I based the call, Ben and I are worried. So we go in there, and it wasn't just 1 or 2. It was like 5, and on the way out the damn door, the woman in there goes, just go home and go to bed. You'll be all right tomorrow. We all went back, and we were talking. I'm like, oh, my God, what the hell did they just give us? It was one of the unbelievable. And then, have you ever heard of the wind-up?
I have not.
Okay. So that's a very British thing. So you're playing a joke on somebody, but everybody's in on it except for you. I mean, and it gets really, they go with it. So Rick set up a wind-up for me, and it went all the way back to San Francisco and all the way to Liverpool. So I leave London on the train, and, it's like a 3 or 4 hour ride to Liverpool, I think. I don't know. Can't remember. And they sell beer on the train. And I'm like, yeah, well, I have a pint, So I did that. And then about 2 hours later, I had another pint. But I was exhausted. I'd been traveling, and getting shots and all this stuff. And so I wasn't quite there. And it's like the 3rd time in a week it's been dark in the middle of for me, And so I get out the train. A guy picks me up and takes me to where they're shooting.
With his bloody Celtic Dawns and his Brian Baroos and his bloody Kathleen Nahulahans. And when did Yeats ever look at a real person, let alone try and understand one? It came to me in a dream.
So I get out of the car, and I'm standing there with my shoulder bag. The luggage, it already was in the car, and blah, blah, blah. And the hotel's like 3 blocks away, and I'm standing there, and up walks this guy in a police uniform. And I'm going, yeah, okay, that's cool. Yeah, they still dress like that over here, And I'm like, hey, how you doing? My name's Chris. He looked at me like, I don't give a fuck who your name is. So I didn't know, because I'd never met anybody from England on the project. My grandparents are from Bromley, so anyway, he stands there and the guy rubs his face and he goes, "So, Mr. Bromley, can I see your papers, please?" And I was like, "What?" He said, "No, I gave my passport and tickets to Sophie at the office back in London." "You mean you have no papers for your coming into this country?" And Chuck is very hard, English accent. And I'm like, "Well, no. I mean, I assumed all this was handled. So I think we're probably going to have to deport you because you're here illegally. You're not here to work, are you?" And I was like, and I remember somebody saying, like, "Don't tell anybody you're here to work." And of course, I was like, "No, I'm just kind of watching, And he goes, "Well, why did you report to a work site?" And I'm just like, "Oh God, I'm going to make the newspaper, promising young gimp, arrested for illegal." So that went on, and so I'm on the phone calling Sophie, and I'm calling Joe Byrne back in London, and trying to get up. Joe was our coordinator extraordinaire, now line producer. I mean, she's Joe Byrne. I just, of course, Sophie, amazing. But anyway, and I'm going, "No, I don't understand. They're telling me they're going to deport me and blah, 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 and I can't. I don't know I don't want to end up in jail. I thought I was coming here to work and you guys had all this handled and blah, 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 blah." I just wouldn't shut up, and then I'm asking everybody, "Where's Rick? I got to talk to Rick." And, well, he's not here right now. He's at a session at the, editing room. They had it all set up. Finally, I was to the point of just complete meltdown, and Callum McDougal walked up and he said, "Hello, Chris, it's Callum. We just reeled you in on the wind-up, man. We got the hook right in your mouth and took." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "That's Chuck Finch, the gaffer, as the policeman," and on and on and on. So it was just a big joke, but it went on for like 45 minutes. But that's the wind-up. Wow. And every time we went somewhere, there were always a couple of guys on the British crew that would practice the wind-up on people. So after it's done to you a couple of times, then you know exactly what they're trying to do, and then you just look at them and say, like, no, I've been there, done that. We did have a laugh now and then.
Wow.
Amazing.
So you guys when you were traveling overseas, you were kind of doing it under the radar a little bit then, if...
You could say that, but, we always, hired on the local production company, but, I mean, there were times where we took a few liberties. We were fully permitted, fully insured. It wasn't like we were an independent film that had nothing but, Starbucks coffee to hand out. Well, Starbucks wasn't even around back then, I don't think. But, back before the war, the big one, WW. But that's how old we are now.
Were you also at the shoots for India and China? I know you guys.
I did not go to China.
Didn't go to China. Got it.
No, I shot on Born Supremacy. We shot in Goa, India.
Hey.
Get in.
What's wrong?
We're blown.
How?
We pushed it. We got lazy. Twice now I've seen the same guy. So I'm in town. He was at the telegraph office.
Are you sure? How
it's
can you
just
be
wrong.
sure?
The guy, the car he's driving, what he's wearing, it's just wrong.
But I didn't do Young Indy in India.
Gotcha.
No, but we did. We shot that whole bridge sequence where they go off the bridge into the water, and when Kirill sees him and blah blah blah. We shot that all in Goa.
It's never going to be over like this. I don't want.
We don't have a choice.
Yes, you do.
That's actually because I want to make sure, like, I'd love to hear about the rest of your career. I mean, obviously Young Indy started, but you've done a lot of stuff. I mean, what are some highlights perhaps of your career that you're really proud of?
Well, I did this one film. I ended up doing loads and loads and loads of horse pictures because I used to ride professionally when I was younger. And then after I got back to Wilmington, and Young Indy was over, and then we finished Radioland Murders, which was a laugh a second. But it was one of the most grueling shoots I'd ever been on.
You sent for me?
Maybe. Who are you?
I'm Claudette Kassenbeck, the va-va-va-voom girl with the va-va-va-voom voice. Who the hell are you?
I'm Lieutenant Cross, the Chicago cop with the short temper. I'm here investigating Mr. Walt Whalen Jr.'s death.
Walt dead? No. Why didn't anybody tell me?
You know, virus.
I'm picking up a contact. 12 miles out. Speed, 0 knots. It's dead in the water, but it's big. It's really big.
I mean, why the hell would they abandon ship, huh?
We got somebody else on board. Repeat, we got somebody else on board. That's who sank the tug.
Drop it.
8 days ago, during a transmission from the Mir space station, something came onto the ship. It took control of computers. It was learning. Learning what? How to kill us.
You know, that $60 million thriller that I think to date 11 or 12 people have seen. But I'm not really sure. But anyway, the film I was talking about earlier was called Ride with the Devil.
From Ang Lee, the director of Sense and Sensibility.
And it's Tobey Maguire, Skeet Ulrich, Jewel.
You ever betted a woman before?
I thought maybe you and me could just ride back home.
Tom Wilkinson, God bless him. And, you know, that's the first time I met and worked with Tom. And then I ended up working with Tom several times after that. But I do, because we had to build camps for them. And, you know, the second they were off work, they were just wasted and trying to do horse stunts and ended up in the hospital. I mean, it was just, these guys were crazy. And, but it's a story of Quantrell's raid on Lawrence, Kansas. And so the little town in, outside of Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas, but Kansas City, Missouri, Petersburg, flooded something like 50 times in 150 years, Red River. And so it was abandoned town. And it was very eerie walking through it because you would go into the doctor's or the dentist or the hardware store, and it was as if people left 15 minutes before you got there. I mean, papers everywhere, stuff, pencils, and pens laying on countertops. But the rust mark was like 6 feet up the wall. So in the hardware store, all the washers and dryers and refrigerators were just rusting hulks. So we bought that town for $1 and rigged it to be like an oven, a gas oven, and then dirted the streets, and all with the promise that that we would turn it into a park. Basically, that meant when you're done, you're going to get all this stuff hauled out and bulldoze it level and plant nice grass. And, you know, if we want a sidewalk to run across it, you'll put that in. And we were like, yeah, cool. So we did that, and it took, I don't know, took the construction paint and effects, you know, a long time to rig that. And we were driving back to Kansas City at night. That was an hour and 10 minutes. So, when I'd have to drive down there to check on that, you know, that's a long day. But it was so cold. And so that's like at the end of the movie when Quantrell and the Raiders ride into Lawrence. So the town worked as Lawrence. And it's a great film, but it got caught up in the, what's the Schwarzenegger film that didn't get marketed? Oh, The End of Days. Yeah. Oh. So they didn't spend any marketing money on that, and they didn't spend any marketing money. Universal didn't spend any marketing money on both our film and that film. But the music on that film was phenomenal.
Daniel Hope.
Jacob Rodell.
You know, the other guy that and I swear I'll kick myself in the butt several times, but one of the other guys that I have not mentioned yet was our stunt guy, Simon Crane.
I'm Simon Crane. I'm a second unit director for the boat sequence. We're doing a great sequence where Bond leaps on a motorbike onto a boat, chases after another boat, crashes into it, gets the girl, big shootout. It's going to be very, very exciting. The complications are trying to make something new. I mean, we did a fantastic boat sequence in The World Is Not Enough, and so it's trying to better that.
Sure.
phenomenal stuff that he did and continues to do. I learned a lot about patience from him, and he was a very kind man. It is a very kind man, and he had a very analytical approach to every single thing he planned. And you know what? People just didn't get hurt. We did some outrageous stunts, and people didn't get hurt, and that because of him. I have a lot of respect for that man.
If something went wrong, it was then very, very dangerous. Other things you could do are still dangerous, but it's not curtains. You know, yes, you get hurt, but with Cliffhanger, if something went wrong, I could have easily been killed.
But then after Ride with the Devil, that was directed by Ang Lee, and so and Ang barely spoke English. One of the funny parts was if somebody had a birthday, he would put a 6-pack of Budweiser into a brown bag and hand it to him and say, "Happy birthday." But and Fred Elm shot it. I mean, every shot is like a postcard. I mean, it's really done well, and it's a shame it didn't get. You know, they were high on it. You know, the Universal guys. You know, the production guy that I worked with Don Zepfel, and Don, pretty much a legend. You know, he started out shooting, combat, the Vietnam War, and then got into film and went to work for Universal. Very, very influential in my career for sure. But anyway, so then it was, there was something in between. I looked at IMDb about 2 weeks ago, because nobody ever uses it really unless you're just looking for stuff. Because if you're up for a job, they're gonna call the producers and execs about you. They don't care what's on IMDb. I've heard there's loads and loads of errors on. People all the time talk about how there's just so many errors. I don't know, whatever. But I would say then it was the virus film. Oh my God, that's like I say, I think 11 or 12, and it was people. They're still trying to make money. I guess they will. That was Donald Sutherland and Jamie Lee Curtis.
You don't recognize me. What's wrong? You must treat me with respect.
Mm-hmm.
And boats, water, and really cold temperatures.
There's no time!
I'm not leaving, not until I know it's dead.
The ship's gonna blow any second.
I have a question for you on the subject of boats.
Mm-hmm.
Because you mentioned you were in Thailand for the Young Indy shoot.
Yeah.
And they shoot in that one a lot on a boat. I guess I don't know what kind of boat it is, but then it feels like that same boat shows up in a lot of other episodes. And I was curious, where is this boat? Do you remember this boat and shooting on the boat?
I remember blowing up a boat.
It was kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, like not a cruise ship, but
right.
It was big enough that you would have like rooms and a dining room and a deck and stuff like that.
I don't remember that boat. That was in Thailand?
Well, it was in the episode. That's the thing. It was in the episode where it was shot in Thailand, but I don't know if the boat was
that was, I think they brought that footage from another shoot. I don't know. Because sometimes we were split up, 20 of us mopping up Africa while the other 60 are in Prague, so I'd have to look on that. I know Ben and I were sent down to Mombasa, and we drove like the first 5 miles, with all these cars honking at us and flashing their lights. And when we figured out we were on the wrong side of the road. And and we went down to Mombasa with, like 3,000 foot loads of film and a camera, a couple lenses. And they wanted to get the stock footage of the Mombasa harbor with these dhows, D-H-O-W, these special boats going across and all the stuff like that. And we did. We shot for like 4 hours and overexposed all the film by like 3 stops. It was good.
No.
Oh, wow.
No, and George's response was, honey, we do this, we'll fix it in post. It's not a big problem. And you see the shot in the cut and you're just like, damn, we did that, Well, we exposed the film, what we did, but they fixed it in post. And that was a running term with, when we were doing all the stuff. Honey, don't worry, we'll fix it in post.
Well, what have you been working on recently? What have you been up to?
I'm doing a lot. I had open heart surgery last October, and I'm done with it. Everything's fine. But then I had stomach surgery before that. About 6 months before that, I had stomach surgery, and a year before that, I had both hips replaced. So I've been kind of in the garage, if you will. But I'm writing a lot of budgets and schedules for films that shoot, in America and overseas too. So, budgets for Universal and Warner's actually. I did the first Conjuring, and that was a lot of fun. James Wan's a brilliant director.
What are you guys?
Well, we've been called ghost hunters, paranormal researchers.
But we prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
I've never seen a director so well. I won't say that. Mike Newell's very, very prepared. James, he came in and knew exactly what to do. Days were never longer than 11, 12 hours, And but I'll tell you, the guy that really does his homework, when I was doing Born Supremacy, is Paul Greengrass, the director.
It's not a mistake. They don't make mistakes. They don't do random. There's always an objective, always a target. The objectives and targets always came from us. Who's giving them to him now? Scary version? He is.
He would show up every morning with a 10 to 12 page notebook, if you will, run it through the copy machine himself, have it stapled, and he would distribute it to everybody in the office so that we all, I'm talking about accounting and everything, because, smart accountants know when they see things what they're going to cost. And Paul included everybody, on his notes for what was going to take place for these scenes.
I need someone I know to bring me in.
Who?
There was a girl in Paris. She's part of the program.
Send her alone. Give her your phone.
What if I can't find her?
It's easy.
She's standing right next to you.
And he did that. He prepped really, really strong. And Frank Marshall would come and go. And, wow, what a great guy. I can't say enough nice things about him and his support. But, Bourne was tough. And we mainly, Dan Bradley was directing second unit. Mitch Amundsen was the DP. And then so we're the three Americans on the crew. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dan's work, but it's unbelievable. And Mitch is brilliant. So we do the car chase. And there was a discrepancy about who was going to direct the entire film, and the writer got mad, and on where the car chase starts, the last thing you read is a car chase ensues in Moscow, and then the next several pages are blank. So we had to put it together, and every day we'd send little videos and snapshots and this about how we're going to build the sequence. And then one of the toughest things that happened was, well, number one, we're in Moscow. Our hotel is 100 yards from the Kremlin, and I don't know if you know about Moscow traffic, but it's you don't even want to go there. We walked to work several times because we didn't want to ride, But anyway, it's hard to work in Moscow. Beautiful, they wanted us to go to Dresden, but you can do Dresden at night really easily, but not as much in the daytime, because they'll say, "Oh, it's got these kind of stone buildings, it's got cobblestone streets, it's very user friendly." And yeah, but no, if you want, that's one thing that Rick also pushed on us hard was, through respecting your craft, you don't settle for something just because it's too inconvenient to do it. If we wanted to shoot at a certain place and he pointed, we would figure it out. So going to Dresden was just I learned, and Dan Bradley learned, and Mitch knows that. No, we don't want to go to Dresden. We just shoot the damn thing in Moscow where it takes place. And closing streets in Moscow is not easy. And they're closed, and then all of a sudden the police show up and say they're open. We're like, oh shit. We got the cars all over the place and extras and drunk police officers and, all this stuff. So that was tough. Mr. Damon, what an amazing guy. What an amazing guy. One of the hardest working guys as an actor I've ever been around.
I killed him. That was my job. It was my first time. It changes things. That knowledge.
Except for Vic Armstrong. Man, you talk about a guy that just amazing stuff and hard work was Vic,
I'd leave one film on a Friday night and start another on Saturday morning, and we just went from job to job to job to job as just a workaholic. And that was a tough film. It was fun, and it was it had a great vibe to it, but it's hard work and very fast shooting. Stephen wanted to prove he could make a movie for the budget that's not go over schedule, and but he had no idea it was going to be what it turned out to be. It was actually, that was the bench line for all action movies from that day onwards.
I think, and Oliver Wood DP, Supremacy, I think for if you go into that film and watch it, I don't know, but a couple of times where you see a dolly move. It's all handheld.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, tripod, handheld. But Paul Paul was kind of like Alan Parker reincarnated. Mississippi Burning, we shot with one camera, except if we blew something up or it was a stunt sequence, we'd use two. But now you got these guys that have to have like 6 bodies and 400 lenses and all this just because they like the toys. Well, I learned a lot about that from Young Indy, that you don't really need the toys. What you need to know how to do is tell the story. You can't tell the story, then it doesn't matter what you got on your truck. Pardon me. But, Born, and then, of course, Virus, and I don't know, a couple of TV things I did. In my spare time, I will do spare time. If I'm not on a production, and I'm not planning on it until January, I'll do concert videos sometimes for large-scale acts, and, where you have to go in, like 4 Technicranes and, 12 cameras and things like that. So
that's great. Well, you've had a tremendously long career and so much success, and it's really cool to hear how that Young Indy experience, was training for you as you go into this. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah, I've got there's a very funny little local newspaper in my hometown where my mother and father lived. They got a hold of my father, and of course, he born in 1918, so they passed away, both mother and father. But anyway, the paper called and said, "Hey, we read about Chris. You got a picture? We'd like to do a little thing on him, for the hometown newspaper, a little thing." And so somehow, I went to ask the stills photographer, and I said, "God, what was the date? Stills photographer." Keith Hampshire, Hamsher, a legend still photographer. And he found a picture he had taken of me operating a Airflex camera in Africa. And I had hair back then, Rick took most of it, but no, just kidding. But yeah, so they send it in there, and it's got this, because it's a tiny little, Murfreesboro now is monstrous. Basically part of Nashville, but back then it was, population, 50,000, 70,000, I don't know. And so it's in the Daily News Journal. It's so funny. It's like the caption, just the corniest thing. Just another day at the office for Chris Bromley in Africa, or something like that. Really corny. And my mother and father sent that to me, and I was like, oh my God, no, really? Oh, geez.
Great.
But, it's pretty funny. But, yeah, the knowledge, the technical ability, the ability to interpret and make the connection between words and visuals was all a part of learning And you had to learn it. You had to know it, because then and only then did you know why certain things were done a certain way. And I think that, George certainly, Rick almost exclusively, and the collaboration between the heads of departments ingrained that in you. So, we'd have these meetings, and so like in America, you had I don't understand what we got, I don't understand what, well, you probably hadn't read the script. And, but we had those meetings on the Indy, and they were like on set before we started shooting. Everybody knew what they had to do, and you brought backups. And here's the big difference: nobody stayed on a truck. Nobody sat in the office. Nobody stayed offset and running errands all over. We didn't need, you had like 15 walkies, because if you're on set watching what your work is, you don't need walkies or cell phones or things like that. You're helping make a film. And I think a lot of the American crews, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but all they care about is the best boys stay on the truck, or they're running errands, or they got to have a PA to go do this, go do that. The best boys are also, keeping up with the equipment that the gaffer or the key grip have. Now, that's not everybody. I've worked with some amazing gaffers and key grips, really, really solid people. But it's just different. And when it was, okay, bring the actors, then all of a sudden it was the actors are coming to set. And you know what? The crew was behind them. And they sat there out of the eye line and watch, so that if, like Nick Law, when Nick was ADing and he would speak, he's just like David Tattersall. They sound about like this when they talk, and they but after a while you tuned into it and you got it, and it just motivated you more and more and more to do that kind of stuff, and that was the knowledge that those guys gave to us. Was one of the things was challenging us to see if we could do better and get better results, better quality. And I'm forever grateful for that, for sure.
You may think we're right back where we started, but the crucial thing is, it was a jolly good effort.
You've mentioned so many wonderful people. We're constantly looking for people who worked on the show to come on and share these stories. So if there's anyone you could put us in touch with from those days, we would definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, well, just stay in touch. You email me some phone numbers so I can do that quickly too, or text you and say, here's this guy, blah, 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 on and on and on.
And also, if you have any photos lying around from the time that you'd be willing to share, we'd love to share those out there.
I got them on a drive
That'd be wonderful.
somewhere.
The thing is with Young Indy is like, there is not a lot of official documentation out there for it. So we kind of feel like we're doing that with this show. So anything.
Well, you got to remember, and like here's an example. You're in Cortina, Italy, and it's night, and you're trying to get the call sheet out. What do you have to do that? Cranking with carbon copy the call sheet, and then all of a sudden somebody sees, oh, wait a minute, okay, back to the office, redo this, put it back in the mimeograph machine, if you will. But and then hand crank them out again and walk down the streets of Cortina to where all the hotels where people are staying. And I'm pretty sure when we were doing that shooting up in the Dolomites, that on or about one of the days when we were up there shooting, on the other side of the Austrian side of the mountain, they were shooting Cliffhanger. And that's when Simon did the plane-to-plane transfer.
Two jets cruising side by side, 3 miles above the Rocky Mountains.
Tango, did the plane, I'm coming over.
One of the villains in the Sylvester Stallone action-adventure Cliffhanger must make his way from the DC-9 to the Gulfstream Jetstar below. British stuntman Simon Crane has been rehearsing this uniquely risky stunt for months.
If something went wrong, it was then very, very dangerous.
Oh, wow.
We could monitor their radios
Wow, he was working on both things at the same time. Wow, look at that.
Drive over the mountain, you know.
That's great.
Wow.
But I would definitely try to talk to Callum. I mean, what a superb individual he is. I mean, just probably one of the most organized people I've ever. And you know who I learned follow-up from? Callum McDougall.
I'm Callum McDougall. I'm the executive producer on Quantum of Solace, the 22nd James Bond film. No news on the air ambulance pilot. My job entails basically the whole organisational operation of the film, incorporating kind of the entire day-to-day running of 4 or 5 units shooting globally across the world.
You know, tell them what it's like tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you've told them, and then tell them again. And then follow that up. So we would sit down and type our, this is when the first Macs, I had a 165 color Macintosh laptop, and it weighed like 60 pounds, and we all had them. We were all into the gadgets at that time. And we'd make our to-do list on the computer, and then we'd all share them and add and subtract and do that. And, I got to tell you, there's nothing better than handwriting it down and then checking it off, because you're in touch with it. You're in touch with it. But Callum, I would definitely try to talk to Terry Bamber. He'll have you on your knees laughing at stuff. Paige Thomas, I would definitely talk to Paige. And I'll send you their numbers. They're just amazing folks, That's great. David Tattersall, the DP,
Those two, yeah.
Hopefully you're going to talk to Gavin Bouquet. And
we had the pleasure of speaking with Gavin a little over a year ago, and he was fantastic. Just had a lot of kind of things. It's fascinating with this show. Like, everyone we talk to says similar things, as you've said. It was their graduate school kind of experience.
Yeah.
And it really feels like such a warm and positive experience. The sort of thing that I think a lot of people just dream about who want to get into the film industry. Like, they want that level of adventure and learning and education.
Yes.
And so rarely is it ever that way anymore. It's so it's fun to look back on.
You're right. It's a manufacturing process.
Captain Defense, you forget yourself.
No, I think I just remembered myself.
Chris, thanks so much for joining us here today. I promised you an hour recording, and it's been an hour and 45. So we should probably let you get on with your day.
Well, not a problem. I am from the South, and I do like to sit on the porch and tell stories. So, But anyway, no, thank you all very much. I'm just happy that somebody is looking after this thing and bringing to light what many people don't know. But when they hear these podcasts, they're going to say, oh, so, yeah, all right. So that's how it works. That's how they did it.
Absolutely.
It was work. There was no glamour. There was nothing. The only thing that was in any way remote would be when Rick would take us to a new location, and he'd say to us, look over there, tell me what you see. And you'd look over there and go, oh my God, that's the most gorgeous sunset. That's the most gorgeous landscape. That's the most gorgeous building. Look at that bridge over the river. He was so much a teacher, and he was wanting us to understand and accept the culture where we were going.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you all so much.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much, and good luck on next projects, and hope you keep on healing and are able to get back to the good work here soon.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Great meeting you.
All right. Take care.
Listeners out there, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can find us at Young Indy Pod on Instagram. Search for us on YouTube, Young Indy Chroniclers.
Please support the Young Indy Chroniclers on Patreon, where you can learn exclusive updates, behind-the-scenes content, and extra episodes. You'll also be connected with a huge community of like-minded Young Indy fans, and it's a really cool place to hang out.
Visit us at patreon.com/Young Indy Chroniclers. For just $5 a month, you'll receive exclusive access for our new documentary project, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age. Until next time, for Daniel and myself, thanks very much for being here, and keep on adventuring.
Next time on the Young Indy Chroniclers.
We're thrilled to have, for our very first audio commentary episode, returning guest Matthew Jacobs. Welcome back to the show, Matthew.
Hi, Peter. Hi, Daniel. What provided us with a narrative thread was the relationship with Claire. John Hales and I had to be on the same page.
There's a scene in Attack of the Clones that's fairly similar when she's like, you're a Jedi and I'm a senator. I mean, essentially she's saying you're an archaeology student and I'm a film writer.
My father played Doc Holliday in Doctor Who. The big joke was that we were going to get George to play this role.
Oh, wow.